Hello, everybody on YouTube. This is actually the first time that I'm going live simultaneously on multiple different platforms. So I'm going to need you to give me a minute, but I don't think anyone's here yet anyway. So just 2 seconds. Um, do, 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 do. Sure. Hello, TikTok. This is actually my first time going live on multiple platforms simultaneously, already on YouTube. So I'm gonna need people to just give me not even 2 minutes, like a minute to sort out Instagram and Facebook. But yes, thank you to the people who have joined already. Facebook, YouTube is done. Instagram is next. And Facebook. Hello, Facebook. And I think I am now all set up. Just give me a second to rearrange my screen. So professional. So professional. I'm here. Oh, just do. Yeah. How's my background looking? Do. Okay. Get there one thing at a time. So, hello, Internet. I'm currently streaming on 3 different platforms. Cool. So the whole social thing, as I am officially running for Student Union President at Metropolitan University. Voting opens tomorrow on Monday and closes on Thursday. And so I thought I'd just do a bit of a live stream ahead of the election and just chill, maybe react to some things on YouTube. I'll read some poetry, talk about some of my policies in the upcoming election. And also just generally talk about anything else and answer questions, whatever. To the people who joined straight away, thank you so much for being so patient. That was a lot to sort out very quickly. So yeah, where to begin? I'm gonna begin actually by opening this bottle of beer. Because I am exhausted. It's been a very long week, just campaigning and whatnot, getting the message out there, putting posters up across the entire university, and we've barely just begun. For those of you who don't know, the main sort of policies that I'm focusing on in this election is I want to tackle student poverty, climate change, and the mental health epidemic. So what that looks like in practice, because I think that a lot of people who run in student union elections promise the world and completely forget that student unions don't actually have that much power. Like, I'd love to sit here and promise that I will abolish tuition fees. But the reality is that student unions, unfortunately, do not have the power to do that. So in terms of what I will do if I win the election, I want to open a food bank in the student union. I want to open a university crash space so that homeless students have somewhere warm and safe to sleep. In relation to mental health, at the minute, if you need, there's like so much support that's like hypothetically available from the university, but if you need support for more than a couple of days, you need to evidence that with evidence from the GP. And the issue with that is that GP waiting lists are huge right now. And as I just stated, student unions unfortunately do not have the power to demand more funding for the NHS. So I want to change it so that you can submit self-evidence, right? Maybe that looks like a conversation with your tutor. Maybe it looks like, testimony from family members or people that know you. That there's all sorts of ways that people might be able to self-evidence things. And if you can take just a small strain off that waiting list, that's going to be a huge improvement. And like I say, whilst the Students' Union does not have the power of a government to make the kind of sweeping changes I would ideally like to see, it is a charity worth £3 million that owns multiple assets in the form of buildings. And there are things you can do with that that can alleviate the pressures of living in the hellscape of capitalism. Do we still need a absolutely, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't strive to try and make things a little bit easier for people in the meantime. So yeah, that's the main base thing of what my election campaign is about. There's 9 people in total running for president, though only 6 people bothered to turn up to anything, and only 4 of us bothered to turn up for the hustings. So, I will be a bit bummed out if I don't make it to the top 4, but there we go. So yeah, it's very cool that there's people actually in the chat. How are people? Um, I feel like I've just talked for a hot minute, which I realize is the main basis of what a live stream is. But yeah, very cool to actually see people in the chat. I'll talk a little bit about what happened yesterday, actually, for anyone who isn't Manchester-based who might not know. So a bunch of racists and fascists decided to organise a hate march through our city centre. And just to be absolutely clear, because I don't want to be misinterpreted here, I am not the kind of person who just calls anyone I disagree with a fascist. I think if you're going to use the word fascist, you need to be like very specific about it and only call people fascists who actually are fascists. Like, I hate conservative politics, but like most conservatives are not fascists. They are, in my opinion, a different problem. But these people were actual for real fascists. And they were planning a hate march through Manchester. So a bunch of us decided to do a counter demonstration against that and say no to hate in our community, which is in line with another one of my manifesto commitments to oppose racism in our communities, because unfortunately there's been a rise in that recently. And I genuinely, going into it, I did not think that the police would be an issue yesterday, because we were literally just there to say racism is bad. It's not the most controversial thing, right? And Jesus, they were just out in force against everyone. It was quite insane to see. I got there a little bit late, and like very quickly after arriving, I saw so many incidents of police violently attacking non-violent anti-racist people who were not doing anything. And then at a specific point, I was stood not moving on the public pavement, watching what was happening in front of me, and still ended up being kettled for the best part of like 2 hours, and then made to leave the city centre for 24 hours upon threat of arrest for standing still on a public pavement. So like that was a bit insane, and maybe they could, spend a little bit more time focusing on the fascists who, unlike us, have absolutely no problem using violence, by the way. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up, and because it made me miss a campaign event. I was going to have a pints and policy social at Grand Central yesterday, and I had to cancel that because if I'd have gone, I would have been arrested for breaching the dispersal order. So not a great use of the police resources, one would argue. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I thought it was important, and I've seen a lot reported in the press on what happened yesterday, but I haven't seen the incident I witnessed be reported in the press. So I just wanted to mention that, I guess. I've just sat and spoken for 10 minutes about politics. So I think I'm going to read a poem. Because I'm primarily a poet. I'm going to read a poem from one of my favorite books of poetry of all time, which is from a book called Glaring Through Oblivion by Serj Tankian, who you might know as the lead singer of System of a Down, which is my favorite band of all time. And let me see what shall I read? It's hard to pick like a good example because all of these poems are so different from each other. That's kind of what I like about this book, but it does make it hard to pick one to read. I think actually I know which one I'll read. Yeah. So this is a poem called Borders by Serj Tankian. Borders are the gallows of our collective national egos, subjective lines in sand, in the water separating everything. Fear is the cause of separation, backed with illicit conversation, procured by constant condemnations, national blood-painted persuasions. Here's my song for the free. No, it's not about brazen publicity, corporatocracy, what a hypocrisy, aristocracy versus democracy. Fear is the cause of separation, backed with illicit conversation, procured by constant condemnations, national blood-painted persuasions. The king is dead and now we're dancing in the streets. As the waters rise, we're merely covering our feet. The gods are dead and now we're dancing in the streets. As the waters rise, we're merely cowering in defeat. I'll never let you go. So yeah, that was that. Yeah. So this is it, basically. I'm just going to be chilling, talking. What I will do, these are the main leaflets of my campaign going into the student union elections. They contain my sort of top 10 policies. If you read the manifesto, though, I appreciate not everyone reads manifestos. There is like 20 odd policies on there, all aimed at addressing issues like student poverty and climate change. But I've got like a top 10 on here. I've got just under 400 of them. I would have liked to have had more, but there's actually what's going on here. I've just had a warning come up. Your live contains themes that some might find uncomfortable and has been restricted. Reasons Oh! I shouldn't have drank the beer. Okay. That's annoying. I didn't know. This is my first time going live on TikTok. I will no longer consume the beer on camera. But for the record, I am only having one. And it shouldn't matter too much because this live is mostly aimed at people over 18 anyway. So if people under 18 can't see this live, that's absolutely fine by me. But yeah, I don't want to get banned from doing lives or anything. So I will no longer consume the alcohol on camera. Anyway, yeah. So I've got like my top 10 policies on this leaflet. I only have just under 400 of them because there's strict spending limits in the election and can't afford to print out anymore without breaking the rules. But yeah, I guess I'll go through them. Not all in one go, I think. I'll spread it out. I've been live for about 15 minutes now. I'm not going to go all night. The original plan for this live was I was going to do a big student sleep out, like close to the student union building, and stay out all night to raise awareness about student homelessness, which shockingly is way more common than you would think. However, what with the dispersal order and everything, I can't actually go back there until tomorrow. The dispersal order I got for standing still on a public highway, not doing anything. I really don't know how to breach the peace any less than that. I feel like I'm breaching the peace more now talking on here. But you know, anyway, so yeah, I'm doing a live stream from my bedroom instead. And I'm not gonna go all night. I am up early in the morning campaigning, talking to students across the entire campus. But yeah, the university crash space is a really important policy to me because I was actually homeless for the beginning bit of my second year. Despite being on the highest possible student maintenance loan, not because I was like irresponsible with money or anything like that, but because landlords were just demanding excessive numbers of rent. Like no one would take me for less than 6 months rent plus deposit up front. And I only had 4 months rent up front plus deposit, which for any reasonable person should be enough. And I realize that nobody nowadays is homeless for the same reasons I was, because the renters' rights bill has now kicked in. But people can be homeless for other reasons as well. The student maintenance loan is not the same for everyone. Some people who have really rich parents get next to nothing. And that's all very well and good if your parents are supporting you. But if you're estranged from your parents, say, for example, if you're gay and they're really homophobic or whatever, they're not going to help you, right? And so, like, that's still an issue. Like, I know of students who are struggling with homelessness right now, and they're paying the university 10.5 grand a year. So I would argue the university has a responsibility to offer them something, even if it's just like a room with some cushions in it. That's like a bare minimum, right? Um, and I'm very determined to do something about this should I win the election. Um, I yeah, I think that's probably the policy I care most about, because, I remember what it was like. It was grim, and it was also stupid. I must have been the richest homeless person in the history of the world. I had thousands of pounds in the bank, but no landlord would take my money. And landlords are the number one cause of homelessness in this country and probably a lot of other countries as well. Um, and something has to be done, especially when students are paying so much money to their university every single year. Um, Ash. Okay. Yeah. Um, that was a long spiel. I went on a bit about that. I really care, as you might tell. Yeah. Um, So yeah, also talking about the election, a couple of the other candidates have put out videos, and it's perfectly fine. It's within their rights to do this, but I've kind of noticed that people kind of copied my format a little bit. I mean, I'm honored. It's a great idea right now. If you haven't seen my official campaign video of me walking around campus talking about all of my policies, it's only about 3 minutes. I am going to be reposting it tonight in preparation for tomorrow. But yeah, it's just funny to see other people sort of like copying my format. And I am also going to be posting a second video this week as well, specifically aimed at the Latin American Society and the European Society. That video is going to be in Spanish, and I'm really looking forward to doing that because, like, when you speak a second language, you often don't get the chance to use it very often. So I'm really looking forward to doing a Spanish video, even though my pronunciation has always been and will always be terrible. Um, but as long as the actual language is correcto, um, porque es un problema, eh? Why is it a problem? Um, so yeah. Um, how are people in the chat? I asked this last time and no one got back to me. Maybe we've just got people who just want to have a chill little chat going on in the background, and that's fine. Yeah. Cool. Shall we have another little poem? It's so hard to drink that without showing it on the chat. The angle is so weird. Okay. I have another little book. This book was made as a joke, but I absolutely adore it. It's a beautiful book of poetry made using entirely Donald Trump tweets, and it's absolutely hilarious. It really does illustrate how much of an insane, crazy man that man is. I did turn it into a drinking game with a list of words, but maybe that's not the best thing to mention on the live right now. But it's just absolutely hilarious. It's not to be taken seriously at all. This entire book is a joke, but I unironically adore it. This is the first poem of this book. It's so stupid. I love it. A beautiful, simple life. Beautiful bikes. Beautiful aircraft carriers. Beautiful coal. Beautiful lie told by crooked Hillary. beautiful hats, beautiful women, beautiful tanks, beautiful Humvees, beautiful copper piping, beautiful auto plant, beautiful Marines. I've never seen scissors that look this beautiful before. It's so stupid. I love it. Yeah. We'll do a few more poems, I think, as the night goes on. Oh, I've only just seen this YouTube comment. My apologies. I am on like 3 different platforms right now. But yes, I agree. Philevo, we do need to use language very wisely. Right, okay. Let me oh, here we go. Okay, so I've just found this video on YouTube that I think I'm going to react to. It's from the YouTube channel called Turn Left. It's like a news channel that's very openly, it's open about its biases. I don't think it's possible psychologically to be genuinely neutral. So I like it when media outlets are upfront and honest about it. Like, these are our biases. You can now take this into account. I like that. So Turn Left are like very left-wing socialist, and they like we know this and we could take this into account. But the title of this video is Daily Mail puts out hit piece on Hannah Spencer, who, if you don't know, is the candidate in the Gorton and Denton by-election, which is actually my constituency that I live in. And I will be voting Green, full disclaimer. I've been out campaigning for her as well. But the reason why I'm going to react to this video is because I'm actually at war with the Daily Mail because they lied about me. If you're thinking, where do I recognize this radical from? It might be from back in 2021, I think it was. I went protesting outside Tory party conference, and Ian Duncan Smith went from the main conference to another hotel to talk at some Brexit fringe event, and a bunch of us decided to protest him the way there. Other things happened. All I did was give a speech outlining to him how he and his colleagues don't like being called things like Tory scum, but they never stop to think about why people have such strong feelings for them. And then I went through like all of the different policies they've put forward that have like had a harmful impact on people's lives, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end of that, with all of that context, I did call him Tory scum once. Other things happened. I was arrested. I was accused of causing him alarm and distress with my words. I had remained socially distanced from him the entire time. And I at no point denied anything that happened, right? My whole defense was freedom of speech. And I was obviously found innocent. But what the Daily Mail did, evil Daily Mail, is they posted the video of the incident, but they bleeped out lots of words that weren't swear words. So they bleeped out, amongst other things, child, poverty, climate, and change. And lots of other words as well. So if you go on the Daily Mail YouTube channel and you find the video, it'll just be me like beep, 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 beep. But like there was like an intelligent speech that was not swearing behind all of those beeps. And so ever since, I have been at war with the Daily Mail, and I have my own plans for them. But let's see what rubbish they have now said about the Green Party candidate for my constituency's local Labour Party. Hope that's what happened. They're gonna say the exact same thing about everyone, right? The job of the establishment is to attack anyone who has policies that threaten the establishment in any way, shape, or form, in a minor way or a major way. Um, and so, like, if you're not absolutely perfect, if you have any imperfections about you in any way whatsoever, they're gonna hone in on that and use that to try and depict you as an evil spawn of Satan, right? And if they have nothing, if you have somehow managed to go through life with nothing, and you were somehow born a perfect human being with no imperfections whatsoever, which doesn't exist, let's face it, but somehow, then they will just lie and make something up, right? Um, I don't think it's mocked. I don't think it's mocking Brexit voters to say that Brexit was a bad idea in the year 2026. All of the economic evidence points to this. It was like I realize there's a lot of people who thought it was a good idea at the time, but how many of those people now accept, in hindsight, it wasn't what they thought it would be, right? And I'm not saying we should rejoin the union overnight. I would love that, right? I grew up in Spain. I consider myself culturally Spanish. I want to move back to Spain. I consider it my cultural home. But like, the Brexit debate caused so much hate and division. It was the most toxic debate in probably in the history of this country, certainly by a long way in the history that I know about of this country. Um, but nonetheless, I think it's fair to say Brexit was a bad idea in hindsight. Many of us were saying that it was a bad idea at the time, and that doesn't mean we can't have closer relations with the EU. Um, you know, I'm sorry, I know it's unpopular with some people. I do think we should restore freedom of movement. That's a debate I'm willing to have with anyone. Um, I don't know if it makes you a zealot to say that you care about climate change. Um, I don't think it does. It's the biggest issue facing humanity. We should probably take that seriously, and I don't think that makes you a zealot. Um, drives a petrol car, yet people need to get around. They'll call you a hypocrite if you use any fossil fuels ever, anytime, for any reason ever. And they won't take you seriously if you become a hippie and go live on a commune. So either way, you lose. And this is what I mean, right? They'll say she's discredited because she has a car, right? Um, but the billionaires who basically live on private jets, they're not the problem. They're job creators. We need to show them respect. It's BS, right? Um, and who doesn't love traveling, right? Like, we all love traveling. I don't even know if any of this is true about her, by the way. It's probably not. It's from the Daily Mail. Um, but like, just the point I'm trying to make is that if you put forward any policy that threatens the establishment in any way, which is also any policy that will make anything better in any way, then um, they're gonna attack you for it no matter what. So you can't win with these people. So basically, don't care what the Daily Mail writes about you. If they say something mean about you, wear it as a badge of honor. I love being everything the Daily Mail hates, and so should you. I don't think this is true. This reeks of the last thing they tried to say about her, which also was not true. So they tried to say that she was married to an AstraZeneca millionaire, right? Which is not. First of all, she's single. She is not married, right? Um, Her ex-boyfriend does work for AstraZeneca, but he's not a millionaire. He's a mid-level scientist. Um, and it's a company that makes new medicine. So, like, the fact her ex-boyfriend is a mid-level scientist working on the creation of new medicine, is that a reason not to vote for someone? I don't think it is. Uh, um, yeah, the home thing, I don't think that's true. I think she lives in a regular house in the constituency, unlike the Reform candidate. The evil spawn of Satan went on holiday. This is what I mean. The car isn't even hers. I hate the Daily Mail. I really do. But sometimes the BS they come out with, it is laughter inducing. It really is. I don't know who they get to come up with this rubbish. Well, at the very least, that part is not true. She's single. Um, so I'm very suspicious of everything else in that paragraph. Um, I'm suspecting that it's all probably BS, but let's see what the video says next. Mi amiga, viva Valencia! I already said I was voting for her. You didn't need to persuade me, Hannah. By the way, as well, being rich in and of itself, she isn't rich. This is rubbish. But being rich in and of itself does not automatically make you a bad person. It is an indicator, but it doesn't automatically make you a bad person. What determines whether or not you're a good or bad person is what you do with that money and how you live your life, right? There is, for example, a whole campaign organization in this country called Patriotic Millionaires, who are a bunch of millionaires who campaign on a platform of tax us more. The poverty and wealth inequality in this country is something we don't want. Tax us more, right? They're good people, right? We want more people like that, right? Um, and I realize that they are a minority of the super rich, um, and most rich people being rich is an indicator, but like you know even if she was rich, which she isn't, like that wouldn't automatically be a reason not to vote for her. What are her policies? Does she put her money where her mouth is? What are her values and her ethics and her morals? Right? Like these are the things that are important in a political candidate and to determine whether or not they're a good person, not how much money they have in the bank. Do you remember, chat, like way back when during the Jeremy Corbyn era? And I don't remember whether this was pre 2019 from 2017 onwards or whenever it was. But it was sort of during that period of time before the anti Semitism stuff had really stuck, where they were just throwing mud at the wall to see what would stick. Obviously, like it was the anti-Semitism stuff that stuck, but they threw out all sorts of random BS stories about him to try and demonize him from the very beginning. Like they tried to say he was a Czech spy, and that didn't stick because it was just so silly and not believable in any way. But like they tried all of these stories, and one story I specifically remember is they tried to claim that he's a hypocrite. He's not a real socialist because he's a multi-millionaire. He's not a multi-millionaire. The figure they came up with, what they did was, because he's been an MP since the 1970s, they added up his annual income every single year, starting from when he first became an MP, right up to present day, um, without taking away anything for bills or mortgage payments or anything, right? They just added it all up and came up with this huge number. And obviously, that's like not how anyone ever lives ever. Like, we all pay our bills, we all spend money on a day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year basis. Um, Jeremy Corbyn is not a millionaire. But again, even if he was, um, he seems like the kind of person who would put his money where his mouth is. And they're just trying to play the exact same thing here. They're trying to make out like she's a millionaire. They're using her ex-boyfriend who works at a very rich company. He's not even a millionaire himself. They're clutching at straws because they actually have no dirt on her or Zach Polanski. Um, and so they're throwing dirt at the wall, and it's not going to work here because a by-election is not enough time to find what sticks, right? They had years to destroy Corbyn. They've got one more week to destroy Hannah Spencer. They're not going to do it in time, but they're trying. I think I've just let the video. I don't know if any of this is true. You're racist. And you know what? If she never went on holiday, if she never left the country because of Green Party immigration policy, they'd probably call her a hypocrite for that, right? Anything. Just attack her for anything. We can't possibly have another progressive in parliament, even though there's like literally less than 100 of them. Like, it's too unacceptable. There are also times, depending on where it is you're going in the world and where you're setting off from, there's occasions where it's actually environmentally better to just fly there than it is to try and go there through other means. If you are planning any long distance trips that you need to do for any reason, there are websites online where you can put in your destination and where you're setting off from, and it will tell you the most environmentally sustainable way to get there. And sometimes you have to fly for reasons beyond your control. So, for example, not last summer, but the summer before that, to get extra credit on my degree, I did a cultural exchange trip to Japan during the summer. I was originally going to not fly there. I was going to get the coach to Russia, to Moscow, which you used to be able to do from Manchester before the Ukraine war. Um, and then from Moscow, I was going to get the Trans-Siberian Railway, which is the longest railway, passenger railway in the world, all the way to Vladivostok on the other side of Russia. And then I was going to get a ferry to Seoul in South Korea, and then a ferry from Seoul to Fukuoka in Japan, and then the bullet train up to Tokyo. And that whole trip would have taken about 10 days, and I was really looking forward to doing it. Then, of course, the Ukraine war broke out, and it's actually not possible to get to Japan from the UK without flying anymore because all the way along all of the land bridges you could possibly pass through, there's now wars in the way. Oh, and by the way, even without taking this into account, war is already really bad for the environment, obviously. Like, I know that doesn't get mentioned a lot because war is very obviously bad for lots of other reasons that are much more pressing. But, like, it's not good for the environment, guys. And, you know, um, so yeah, sometimes flying is unavoidable. And we, as working class people, should not feel guilty for very occasionally needing to get on a passenger flight as a last resort when billionaires literally think it's okay to spend most of their life on a private jet, having breakfast in New York, lunch in Rome, and dinner in Beijing, as if that's a perfectly normal and acceptable thing to do. When she jets all over the world herself, this implies that the way that sentence is written, it implies that she has her own private jet. Private jets should be banned, right? I don't know for a fact if that's Green Party policy. I think it might be. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Private jets should be banned, right? If if there's a scenario where you really do need to fly, get on a passenger flight. Doesn't matter how rich you are, put your ego aside. Like, at least passenger flights transport like 40 odd people at a time for the same fossil fuel emissions as your private jet takes like five. You know, like, come on. I'm sorry. I don't know for a fact, but I just do not believe the Daily Mail on this. I think that whole thing about a grandmother saying, "I was gonna vote Green, but now I won't because she got on a plane one time." I don't think it's true. I don't believe them. Um, it's a really good job that she's a plumber, given all the shit they're throwing at her. Sorry, that was rubbish. Never mind. Going on holiday a couple of times does not mean you love the air shovel industry. Well, that's gonna take out like 500 MPs straight away. So it's a lot. What did I say? Abolish lifeboats. Yeah. I'm not surprised that the Daily Mail doesn't know the definition of empire. Terrible. I'm now change my vote to Recall. Mhm. Genuinely, I'm not lying to you here. I was literally about to mention how the whole concept of a carbon footprint was made up by Shell, in order to guilt trip people into thinking it's your fault the planet is in such trouble and not the fault of the industry. Mhm. Which, by the way, has needed to happen for a long time because one of the lies that has persisted about the Green Party for a very long time is this idea that the Green Party is just full of like middle class people who have never worked a day in their life and who like don't understand the real struggles of the working classes. When in actual fact, first of all, middle class people work. Middle class people are also working class. Like a working class person is anyone who lives paycheck to paycheck and it isn't rich, right? A rich person who is not working class can just like go through life not ever having to worry about income because they have enough. They can afford to just be like, I don't really know what I want to do with my life. I guess I'll just like take a year out to find myself. Yeah, okay. But like the rest of us have bills to pay, so maybe like shut up because like that's rubbish. Um, so like, what it was always rubbish. But the point is that the environmental movement and the working class movement should always be interlinked. Because if you think about it, the injustice of wealth inequality and the injustice of the overconsumption of the Earth's natural resources, which is a key part of climate change, is the exact same injustice, just looked at from two different perspectives, right? The Earth's natural resources are being overconsumed because of wealth inequality, right? The world is not being destroyed by your family of four who scrape up all the money they can save all year just so they can afford 2 weeks in the sun on a plane, right? The world is being destroyed by billionaires with private jets. Like that's what's going on. So yeah. isn't it funny as well how Reform are trying so hard to portray themselves as being anti-establishment from a right-wing perspective? And obviously, I'm biased because I'm like on the exact opposite end of the spectrum. I'm like as left wing as you can go. But like they try to claim they're anti-establishment right wing, yet half of their so-called cabinet, and it's not a real shadow cabinet, like that's not a real thing unless you're the official opposition, constitutionally speaking. But park that aside, they're full of former Tories. They're full of people from the previous government who spent 10 years like actively making this country worse, right? And their corporate interests, the people they keep on taking like lobby money off, are the exact same people who keep on giving lobbying money to both the Conservative Party and the Labour Party. They're all the same. They're all exactly the same. And so the idea that Reform is anti-establishment from a right-wing perspective is just a load of rubbish, right? If you want an anti-establishment vote, the only option in the Gorton and Denton by-election is the Green Party. And also, to be fair, there are some smaller parties running. I got a leaflet the other day from Rejoin the EU party, but like the reality is these people aren't going to win. Vote Green, like because they can actually win. And it's going to happen. Anti. Evil spawn of Satan went on a holiday. Um, yeah. So in conclusion, the Daily Mail is evil, and you all should boycott it. And yeah, to hell with the Daily Mail. It's the conclusions we can draw from that. 18 people in the chat now. That's really cool. It's surprisingly addictive. I might end up going live a bit more often now. Even though, like, I always think it's a good idea, and then I get on, and then my brain is always like, "What the hell am I going to talk about?" But I've already been talking for like an hour, and I haven't quite run out of things to say yet, so that's good. Um, for those of you who have joined since I started reacting to that video, very briefly, the main point of this live is just to talk about the student union elections that I'm standing for president in at Manchester Metropolitan University. So I've just been talking politics and policies and doing the odd poem. And apparently people care. So that's nice. Going back to some policy, I guess. I've already talked about the on-campus food bank and the crash space to help homeless students. I'll mention another couple of things. Obviously, climate change is a really big issue. And as I previously mentioned, student unions do not have the powers of government. There's a very limited amount that we can do. But one thing we can do, because like we actually own land. We own a piece of land called Drybank Fields, which is a really important, what's the word? Not nature, natural habitat for some endangered species, which is why there were huge protests when the university proposed building student houses there. Because one, it's a really important habitat for the local ecosystem, and it would cause endangered species to die. But two, also, like when they say affordable student housing, they don't even mean affordable anyway. Like we have plenty of student housing in Manchester. The issue is how much rents cost, right? And adding more places with the same or higher rents is not actually going to help people who can't afford those rents, right? Um, and so my proposal is to turn that into a community education garden, um, to help with climate change, and also over time, obviously, this will not come to fruition within my time as student union president. But we can also grow food there that will eventually one day help stock up the food bank on campus. So that's cool. And also, like I say, we own multiple buildings. We're a £3 million charity. And we also have so many talents from so many students, from so many different courses. There's no reason why we shouldn't be having nightly events in the massive arse venue that the student union owns with the big stage and the lighting and the bar. It's a great venue and it's hardly ever used. And most of the time when it is used, it's used for like, you know, um, a secondhand thrift store or something. This is a huge professional stage, right? We have societies for basically every genre of music you could think of. We have orchestra societies, choir societies, martial arts societies, performance arts societies, film societies, like so many different groups who would all independently of each other, never, not even considering any potential like collaborations, could put on some really great events in a venue like that, right? And we could potentially make a lot of money from this that we could then use to give societies better budgets and also to fund campaigns to fight for student rights, to fight the government on things like tuition fees and like the lack of like funding for students at university, right? Like we have all of these resources and we're just not using them as effectively as we otherwise could. Not to mention as well, actually, like timetabling mistakes. We're paying them 10.5 grand a year, and sometimes they send people to the wrong rooms. They put people in lessons that clash. They don't log people's attendance properly. Sometimes people's schedules just show up as blank and they're not told when and where their lessons are, right? This shouldn't be happening when we pay them 10.5 grand a year. There are disabled students who have PLPs in place, which are basically personalized learner plans for students who have disabilities who need extra support. And in theory, on paper, great. But in reality, so often that support just isn't there. There's one person I know, and I'll keep her anonymous. Um, but basically, she has a disability, something to do with her spine, and she needs a special chair to sit in, right? And that chair, because it's not needed all of the time, and there are other students like her, that chair is supposed to just be in the room we're booked in during the class. And then when the class is over, um, whoever needs it next, there'll be someone whose job it is to go pick the chair up from that location and take it to the next location it's going to be needed. So often that chair is not there, and she misses like the first half of class looking for this chair. She's paying 10.5 grand a year. This should not be happening. So all of these things, um, we have we have detected inactivity during your current live. Complete the verification to continue. Okay. Um, what verification? Um, I am here doing things. Oh, okay. There we go. I don't know why it detected inactivity. I've been here the whole time. Um, but yeah, these things shouldn't be happening when we're paying 10 grand a year. And these improvements can be made to make living in the hellscape of capitalism that little bit easier until the revolution. So yeah, that was just a bit more policy. 22 people live now. That's very cool. Sorry, just drinking to the side because TikTok told me off before. Yeah. Shall we have another poem? I'll have a serious poem this time, not a silly Donald Trump one. In a time and a place. Which one shall we do? Okay, cool. This is from Serge Tankian's book, Glaring Through Oblivion. And it's called The Incandescent Pause. I long to see my minutes with the eyes of a dream, a landscape from a cloud, a river through the hollow sky. As ascending and descending sounds near, forming non-musical harmonies in my memory. I'd like to talk through the delay of unraveling time, physically lazy, mentally astute. The hi-hat spoke and the people followed, the traces of stars appearing in their views. I'd like to love with the knowledge of all truisms and purify my virtue with eternity. All things come from far for the nearest reward, poised to accept infamy. I want to hear with the ears of a minstrel, identifying noises and sounds as colors on the canvas of the moment. Unresolved notes could be pretty in retrospect when looked upon from the incandescent pause. Yeah. So that was that. Cool. 23 people now. I am genuinely slightly running out of things to say. I have been on live for over an hour now. But yeah, I definitely do want to say thank you to everyone who joined this live. If you are a student at Manchester Metropolitan University, I sincerely hope that you will consider voting for me to be your next student union president between Monday and Thursday. And if you are not a student at Manchester Metropolitan University, but you are local to Manchester, I would be incessantly grateful for any leafleters/flyers who are willing to talk to people for hours at a time over the next week. That would be very, very helpful. I am planning on meeting with all sorts of societies. As I said before, I've got a Spanish video coming out for the Latin American Society and the European Society. So I'm really excited about that because I don't get to use my Spanish a lot. Yeah. I thought about doing some of my own poetry on here, but it's like 10:30 at night and I have neighbors, and a lot of my poetry is like very punk screamy. And I think I'd get in trouble for that. Also, my housemates are sleeping, so that might be a little bit unfair. But I am planning on getting more on top of it, honestly. Like, at the beginning of this year, I did plan on doing a lot more poetry on TikTok. Poetry is literally the original reason why I even downloaded TikTok in the first place, and I just haven't been posting poems on TikTok, even though that was my original intention. But I've just been I've been busy. I've been prioritizing my degree. I'm in my final year, so my grades really matter this year. And obviously, at the moment, I have the election as well. But and I know I keep saying this, but very, very soon, I'm gonna be posting more poetry on TikTok more regularly. I want to be doing it every night, but I just keep on not. Um, but once I eventually one day get into a routine that will work out. Literally the original reason I even downloaded TikTok in the first place. Literally the whole reason why I made this wall as a background. I was going for like um, political ADHD. Um, so, yeah, so that's what that is. I should probably get around to actually doing that at some point. Um, yeah. What's that? Okay. I seem to be getting lots of updates from other lives as well, which I don't need, but that's fine. Um, also live on the other yeah. What else have we got? I'm a little bit like mumbling now, so I'm gonna go soon. Um, but I've gotten through most of the policies here. Um, I do have to be up early in the morning as well. I'm meeting students as early as 8 a.m. So I don't even think voting is open as early as 8 a.m. I know it opens tomorrow. The student union hasn't said what time voting opens tomorrow. But I'm speaking with students from 8 a.m. tomorrow. And it would be great to see people on campus either voting for me or talking with me or flyering, leafleting for me. Yeah, because I am really passionate about trying to make things better for people. And I think that sometimes you need a troublemaker who is motivated by past experience, not just of themselves, but of other people as well, um, to be in positions of power and demand. Yeah, I'm gonna use the catchphrase "demand radical change." It's a useful name for campaigning, and it is my real name, believe it or not. I am legally radical. That's what it says on my passport. Um, and it's all fun and games until you travel, and in certain accents, my surname sounds a little bit like the word Islam. It's not. My surname is Haslam, but in certain accents, and border patrols are not always super thrilled at the name. But there's no way I am changing my surname because it's from my dad's side of the family, and I love my dad to bits. So that's just what it is. Um, yeah. 24 people now. Cool. I should do these lives more often, but like with a more concrete plan rather than just like rumbling through it with like a as with like an idea of what I'm going to talk about in a couple of poetry books. I should have like a plan for lives, I think. Um, but yeah, this has been fun. Um, I'm gonna end on a stupid poem from the spoof Donald Trump book, just because it's hilarious to me. What stupid thing should I read? Um, da, 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 da. What stupid thing? Um, that one's not quite so funny anymore after what we learnt in the Epstein files. I'm probably gonna get in trouble off TikTok for mentioning that now because I've not censored it. Whatever. I'm nearly done anyway. Um, so many of these are bad, like without context. I can't say them without context because it's not okay without the context of the thing. I'm trying to find one that's actually like objectively funny without the in-book context. What about I don't know who Glenn Beck is, but Donald Trump doesn't like him. Trying to pick a good one to end the live on. Sorry, this isn't very good, is it? There's like 25 people watching, and I'm just sat in silence flipping through a spoof comedy book, a spoof poetry book. Oh, here's a stupid one. I am just going to explain the context of this book before I read it, and then I'm going to end on this poem. So this is because new people have joined the live since I last did this. So this is a spoof poetry book from Donald Trump, which is made up entirely of his tweets, and it's so stupid. It's hilarious to me. So this poem is called "I Have the Best Words." I'm not going to do the accent because I can't do accents like at all. Even when I speak Spanish, es el mismo acento. I can't do accents. It's the exact same. Anyway, I'm not going to do the accent. I have the best words. I think I'll say a few words. Okay. Are you ready? Good. Bad. Sad. Loser. Terrible. Outrageous. Spectacular. Fantastic. Scandal. Smart. Stupid. Weak. Strong. Great. Shameful. Beautiful. Nice. Dangerous. Love those words. And there's so many more. It's so stupid. Such a stupid poem. And you know what? All of those random words, a lot of them aren't even from separate tweets. Anyway, on that bombshell, what have we learned today? We have learned not to believe the Daily Mail, that Donald Trump is an idiot, that you should vote Green in the Gorton and Denton by-election, and that you should vote Radical to be the next student union president at Manchester Metropolitan University. And maybe, just maybe, the real fascists were the police we funded along the way. Okay, yes, with that bombshell, I am going to go. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned into this live on multiple platforms. I don't think I managed to get Instagram working. But other than that, I think everything else is covered. And if you're a student at Manchester Met, I will most likely see you on campus this week. I'm going to be there all day, every day. And if you're not, have a great evening, a great rest of your evening, and a great week ahead. and maybe I'll do this again soon. Okay. Bye.